Hello and welcome to the Commander's Quarters. I'm your host, Mitch. Glad to have you here. Here at the Commander's Quarters, we're all about Commander on a budget. Today we have an episode of Commander's 2 Cents. On episodes like these, I give you my own personal take on topics about the format in general and current news. This show and episodes like this one are possible thanks to viewers like you. If you're looking for an easy way to help support this show, make sure that you like, share, and subscribe. Also, hit that bell notification icon so you don't miss any new episodes. And while you're at it, subscribe and review our podcast as well. You can also go check out our playmats and other merchandise at thecommandersquarters.com. Another easy way to support this show is with our TCG player affiliate links. So whether you're buying a deck or individual cards, you can use this general link right here or one in the description. And the final way that you can support this show is by supporting us directly by becoming a patron. There are many benefits to being a patron, and I truly couldn't do this without all of their support. So not too long ago, I did an episode on the most exclusive commanders of all time. These commanders were essentially just made for very specific people in small quantities. According to a tweet by Sheldon, technically they are legal for those who have them if they were made for that person. So for example, the 1996 World Champion could use the card 1996 World Champion, which is a legendary creature, as their commander. But there is only one 1996 World Champion out there, both in person and as a card. You get it. Basically, these cards are really rare. Basically, if these exclusive cards were not made for you in particular, you cannot play them legally as your commander. Now, you might not be able to play with these exclusive cards, but you might be able to do something that's even more exclusive. And that would be to create your own custom commander. Now, a quick disclaimer, custom commanders are not technically legal in Commander. The reason being is pretty obvious, as you can make some very powerful and extremely broken commander. For example, my commander costs 0, but when it enters the battlefield or is cast, I just win the game. Obviously, that's not too fun to play with. But you can create fair commanders that are fun to play with and do some unique things that no commander out there currently does. Maybe there's a type of deck that you really want to build, but there isn't really a commander out there that fits with that kind of deck. If your playgroup's okay with you playing with it, then go for it. But if not, that's okay too. Now, if I was to make a custom commander, it would probably be a mono-white commander that actually provides card advantage outside of Shram. Isn't that a concept, Wizards? A mono-white commander that gives you card advantage. But let's move on from my saltiness about the subject. I will say that there's some unique things that Wizards can take from these cards and then apply to their own commanders that they're making for the future. Anyways, there's an entire subreddit that's dedicated to custom Magic cards. It's called Custom Magic. If you haven't heard about it yet, now's a good time to go and join the over 27,000 members. Anyways, there are a ton of great custom Magic card creators out there. And one of those creators is Arya, though, who has created a ton of custom legendary creatures, and I wanted to show off a few of those. Now, on this subreddit, some of the custom Magic cards feature art from the actual creator. But if the art from the card is from a different artist, that artist is credited on the card. Anyways, let's get into some of those unique commanders that really stuck out to me. And I'm going to try my best with these card names, but I apologize for any of the ones that I mispronounce. I also apologize if I mess up on any specific rules interactions with these cards. Obviously, Gatherer doesn't have these cards in their rules listed. First up, we've got Fifus Festive Friend. It's a 3/5 legendary snow creature dragon that costs red, green, white, blue. It says whenever you give one or more gifts, you gain 1 life, draw a card, and create a 1/1 green elemental snow creature token. You give a gift when your spell or ability causes an opponent to gain life, draw a card, create a token, or gain control of one of your permanents. So essentially the sentiment is if you help someone out, you get something back. As many people know, giving gifts is always better than receiving. Anyways, it's a very unique commander because it incentivizes you to help other players out. Because when you do that, you're probably helping yourself out even more. So we're going to run cards like Centaur Peacemaker, which is going to gain each player 4 life. Now again, this is a rules interaction question, but I believe you'd get 3 triggers off of this since you have 3 separate opponents. But I'm sure if I'm wrong, someone will let me know in the comments. Same thing with Prosperity, it's going to draw each player X cards, so again, 3 triggers. And repeatable effects like Acorn Catapult can be great too. It's kind of not in the spirit of things because you're basically hitting someone with an acorn and then they get a squirrel. And even though you damaged them, they got the squirrel, so you get a gift. Anyways, this could make a very fun political deck that has a lot of card advantage built into it. Next up, we've got Koro the Shifting Wind. Koro is a 3/3 human pirate that costs 2 blue and a red. She has whenever a spell or ability you control causes a creature an opponent controls to become tapped, gain control of that creature until end of turn, untap it, it gains haste until end of turn. And real quick, because these are custom cards, I really want to point out the amount of thought and detail that goes into these. So make sure you check out the flavor text on these too. Hostage? Nonsense. You're just part of the adventure. Essentially, if you tap something, you get it temporarily, and it becomes untapped and gets haste. So something like Tempest Caller, which taps one opponent's creatures, seems pretty good. Ensnare, which taps all creatures, and you can do it for free, seems even better. In Abyshin, Cephalid Emperor, who can tap all creatures without flying by just paying blue, blue, blue over and over again, seems pretty great. This one seems like a very powerful commander. Next up, there's Pithecus Simian Sovereign, which is a 4/4 ape noble that costs 2 red and a green. It says whenever an ape or monkey deals combat damage to a player, put a +1/+1 counter on target creature. And then whenever you put 1 or more counters on a creature you don't control, go with that creature, then draw a card. Now, apes and monkeys generally aren't the most powerful of creatures, but if you've always wanted a tribal deck built around apes and monkeys, this is your chance. So of course, in those apes and monkeys, you've got to include Gorilla Titan. If you haven't seen this card yet, it's got probably the best flavor text ever made in Magic, which just says, "I want a banana this big." It's not that great of a card, but it definitely wins in flavor. Now, personally, I'd probably just build around that second part and not the ape and monkey tribal. So I'd work to get counters on my opponent's creatures with things like Evolution or Escalation and Thrive. Goading your opponent's creatures all at once or continuously can be a very powerful effect. It's kind of like a Marisi deck in that way. Next up, there's Descartes the Bloodfin. It's a 3/3 Merfolk Shaman that costs 1 blue-black. It says when another creature dies, untap all Merfolk you control that gain menace until end of turn. And then tap 5 untap Merfolk you control, draw a card. So of course you can build Merfolk Tribal and draw a lot of cards and swing through with menace. So run a ton of Merfolk, especially ones like Enclave Cryptologist, which can just draw you a card on its own. There are other Merfolk in Dimir that tap too, so consider them as well. You could also take this deck in a different direction though, thanks to something like Arcane Adaptation. When it comes into the battlefield, you choose Merfolk, and then creatures you control are Merfolk in addition to other types, and the same is true for creature spells you control and creature cards that you own that aren't on the battlefield. Essentially, all your creature cards are Merfolk too. So Visara the Dreadful is a Gorgon Merfolk, and it has tap, destroy target creature, it can't be regenerated. I think you can see where this is going. You tap, destroy target creature, and then all your Merfolk, including Visara, untap, and then you can do it again, and again, and again, and again. But let's move on to our next commander, which is a cute little guy. It's Edford Master Burglar. Edford is a 1/3 cat rogue with Skulk and Haste, and it costs 1 blue-black. It says whenever Edford Master Burglar deals combat damage to a player, put a theft counter on target non-creature permanent that player controls. Then gain control of each permanent with a theft counter on it until end of turn. Untap those permanents that can't be sacrificed this turn. So essentially with the first hit, you steal 1 thing. The second hit, you steal 2 things. The second hit, you steal 3 things, and so on and so forth. You're kind of more so borrowing so you can use it and not necessarily just stealing it permanently. That's a very unique and cool effect, and I'd build around it with things like Fire Shrieker, Styranic Resonator, and Sign on Sanctum. Fire Shrieker would get us 2 triggers since it's going to hit twice with Double Strike. And then Styranic Resonator can also get us 2 triggers since we can pay 2 and tap it to copy targeted triggered ability we control. So essentially with either of those, we'd get 2 theft counters in a turn instead of 1. Now, although we can't sacrifice the permanent, we can get a little tricky with something like Sign on Sanctum. Because with Sign on Sanctum, we can pay 2 and tap it to exile target permanent we control. Then if we want to, we can pay 2 and sacrifice Sign on Sanctum and return all cards exiled with Sign on Sanctum to the battlefield under our control. So this is either a way to actually get rid of things or just to permanently gain control of certain things. Anyways, I think this cat burglar would be a ton of fun to pilot. Next up, we've got Slimer and Gluttonous Glob. I just want to point out the flavor text really quick on this one because I thought it was pretty funny. Plumbers? What an unnecessary expense, says former King Rufus. Anyways, Slimer is a 3/3 ooze that costs 1 black, green, blue. It says whenever 1 or more creature cards leave a graveyard, create a 2/2 green ooze creature token. Then if you control 5 or more oozes, put a +1/+1 counter on each ooze you control. So basically get rid of creatures in graveyards, create oozes, and then make them bigger once we get past 5. So we're going to want cards that mill like Dreamborn Muse, and this one's especially effective because it mills everyone. We also want cards that exile, and Scavenging Ooze is a perfect one because it's also an ooze. It has pay a green, exile target card from a graveyard. If it's a creature card, put a +1/+1 counter on Scavenging Ooze and you gain 1 life. And Biogenic Ooze was pretty much made for this deck because when it comes into play, you create a 2/2 green ooze creature token. At the beginning of your end step, you put a +1/+1 counter on each ooze you control. On top of that, you can actually just make oozes with this by paying 1 green, green, green. Ooze Tribal might not be a thing right now, but it definitely is with Slimer. Next up, we've got Plios, Maw of Depths. It's an 8/8 Leviathan that costs 4 blue, blue, black, black, and it's got a merge for 5 blue, black. It says you may cast spells as though they had a merge. Each spell's emerge cost is equal to its mana cost. So this is a commander that kind of takes an existing mechanic and really applies it to an entire deck. There aren't too many cards out there that actually have a merge, but this one gives it to everything. So I'd probably run some creatures that have a high converted mana cost, but I could get out quickly like Gurmag Angler. Because all your spells have a merge, you can basically use something like Gurmag Angler to help cast them. And essentially, casting a Sepulchral Primordial for just a black mana can be huge. Because when it comes into play for each opponent, you can put up to 1 target creature card from that player's graveyard onto the battlefield under your control. This and other big creatures that have huge ETBs can be very effective in this deck. And again, because all of our spells have a merge, even something like Ingarrick's Wake, which costs 9 mana in total, can be very easy for us to cast. Another mechanic that doesn't see too much love when it comes to commanders is energy. So prepare yourself because the energy commander is here with the Aether Hub Infiltrator. It's a 3/3 gremlin that costs green, blue, red. It says whenever you get 1 or more energy, you create a 2/2 red gremlin creature token. And then when 1 or more creatures you control deals combat damage to a player, you may pay energy. If you do, draw a card. So this card benefits us whenever we get energy, and it helps us use it too for card advantage. So obviously with this deck, you want to run some great energy cards. Some cards to consider are Aether Hub, Aetherwind Basker, and of course, Aetherworks Marvel. Next up is She Who Asks. She's a 3/3 Sphinx with flying and lifelink that costs 1 white, blue, black. Whenever She Who Asks or another Sphinx enters the battlefield under your control, exile the top card of your library face down with a riddle counter on it. You may look at that card, then target opponent may have you draw 2 cards. If that player doesn't, you may cast up to 1 card you own in exile with a riddle counter on it without paying its mana cost. So this is a very interesting mind game that you get to play with your opponent. They have to decide, is it worth it to let them draw 2 cards, or is it worth them to cast a spell for free? The more spells that have riddle counters on them, the higher the likelihood is that you got a really good one. So this kind of a deck is perfect for Sphinx Tribal with cards like Unesh, and blink effects like Ghostly Flicker fit right in here too. And of course you're going to want some big haymaker spells like Aminatu's Augury to do some really crazy things. The final custom commander that I want to go over today is Olivia, Lord of Innistrad. So a quick note, yes, custom commanders can be based around actual creatures in Magic's history. Anyways, she's a 3/3 Vampire Knight with flying that costs 2 black, red. She has whenever you cast a spell for its madness cost, target opponent discards a card. And whenever an opponent discards a card, you may create a 1/1 black vampire creature token with lifelink. So basically you benefit whenever you discard and opponents discard too. When you discard cards, you can cast them for their madness cost, and when opponents discard cards, you get vampires. The more madness cards that you cast, the more you make your opponents discard too on top of that. So wheel effects like Magus the Wheel can be huge for this deck. Not only do they let you cast your madness cards, but they also can make your opponents discard a ton. And then of course you want to run some good madness cards like Call to the Netherworld. And also some vampire tribal things can help too, like Cordial Vampire. Some of those tokens are bound to die, so they're going to pump up your entire army. Again, a huge thanks to Arya though for allowing me to show off their custom cards. If you want to see more custom cards like these, go ahead and check out the Custom Magic subreddit. And with that, this show is coming to a close, but it's my turn to hear from you. So in the comments below, let me know what your favorite custom commander from today was. And make sure you're following us on social media for more updates and sneak peeks on future episodes. Again, a huge thank you to my patrons who help make this show possible. I truly couldn't do any of this without your support. If you want to support this channel directly, consider becoming a patron. There are many benefits to being a patron, including being able to vote on future commanders for deck techs. There are even tiers where you get your own personalized deck tech dedicated to you. You can check out all the Patreon tiers and rewards at patreon.com/commandersquarters. If you haven't already, make sure that you like and subscribe to the channel. Here at the Commander's Quarters, we're all about budget commander. So while you're at it, go ahead and check out some of our other types of episodes. And with that, I'm out of here. Thanks again and have a good one.